A crowd of survivors watched this scene in horror, their hair standing on end, faces pale. This was not what they had imagined. The military had come to rescue them, but it also brought greater dangers and troubles. The chance of survival came hand in hand with increased peril, and panic ensued among everyone. However, this was normal. With global catastrophe looming and the apocalypse approaching, the military was stretched thin in the coastal city. Breaking the troops into smaller units was both a tactic and a necessity. It was unrealistic to expect the military's actions to be as safe and reassuring as ordinary survivors hoped, still operating within the city and searching for survivors. The military had done all they could. Of course, it was difficult for ordinary survivors to understand. Amid the flames and gunfire, chaos began to spread. At this moment, voices from the military personnel who had entered the building reached the survivors on the first floor. "We have survivors here. We found survivors. Count the numbers. Quickly count the numbers. Gather all survivors for evacuation. Cover fire, machine gunners, open fire. Let's eliminate these monsters." The chaotic voices mixed with gunfire. The flames flickered, and every face showed uncertainty. Su Xinghai, however, had no time for such thoughts and was busy polling survivors to ask if there were any doctors. At this time, the people on the second floor were already in disarray. Although the military had arrived, their presence brought danger, and the survivors didn't know whether to feel fear or joy. No one paid attention to Su Xinghai. Suddenly, hurried footsteps were heard from below, and 3 or 4 bloodied soldiers rushed up to the second floor, saying, "How many of you are here? Everyone must get up and evacuate immediately. It's too dangerous here. We need to retreat right away, lighten your load, and prepare to run." The survivors stood up, a mass of people surging forward. In the midst of the chaos, whether they wanted to run or not, everyone was swept along, following the military to evacuate. Outside, mutated brown bears and giant mutant birds had begun to fight, their roars shaking the streets and causing everyone's hearts to tremble. At that moment, a figure emerged from the crowd, standing beside the soldier and shouting, "We have someone here with a high fever and unconscious. Do you have any military medics? Please, save him." This person was Su Xinghai, who had no time to think about anything else at that moment. Chapter 45. P.S. Beyond Saving. The situation in the royal city was dire, and the circumstances for the survivors in the hot pot restaurant took a sharp turn for the worse. At this moment, Su Xinghai had no choice but to seek help from the military. He had just asked around, and among the survivors in the room, there wasn't a single doctor. In the chaos, one young man claimed to have learned a bit about medicine from his father. He eagerly accepted a pile of supplies Su Xinghai handed him, but immediately revealed his lack of knowledge by suggesting that the severely feverish Wang Qing needed to take some banlangen, a traditional Chinese herbal remedy. Su Xinghai felt a surge of frustration towards the guy. In the midst of the chaos, the fraudulent survivor fled with the supplies while the monsters roared and flames flickered. The calm of the hot pot restaurant's second floor was completely filled with chaos and madness. At this moment, military personnel happened to rush in, leaving Su Xinghai no other option but to seek their assistance. If Wang Cheng were still conscious, he might consider himself unlucky. He had chosen to inject the serum because he felt safe and in control, and the current situation was something he never anticipated. However, this was the apocalypse. There was no place that was absolutely safe at any time. Wang Cheng had made the best judgment he could, and even if the circumstances were different, it was possible that he would face other dangers and dilemmas after injecting the special serum. This was not a misjudgment on Wang Cheng's part. In the crowd, 2 security personnel were closely guarding a girl in a short skirt, who was curiously peeking over to see what was happening with Su Xinghai and Wang Cheng. The soldiers frowned, with a few guiding other survivors to move quickly downstairs. The one who looked like an officer frowned as he listened to Su Xinghai say a couple of sentences, then said, "We all know first aid. Lead me to your companion first, quickly. Time is of the essence." At that moment, the hot pot restaurant shook violently, and debris fell from the ceiling. Su Xinghai glanced outside and saw the terrifying mutated brown bear collapsing, crashing into another building beside the hot pot restaurant. That structure crumbled like it was made of paper, causing their 3-story refuge to shake as well. Caught between 2 giant mutated birds, the 10-meter-tall mutated brown bear seemed to have no effective means to fight back, struggling and roaring in vain, unable to catch its flying opponents. The 2 giant birds were in a state of frenzied grief over their lost offspring, and the appearance of the mutated brown bear became an outlet for their rage. It wasn't just a matter of being attacked. Even being caught in the crossfire of these colossal creatures meant certain death for everyone inside the building, whether they were the daughters of prominent figures or seasoned warriors. They all faced the same fate, death. These 3 mutated beings were at least level 2 or higher. "Hurry, hurry," the soldier urged from behind. Su Xinghai's heart raced. He had heard Wang Cheng share intelligence obtained from Li Xinqing and understood what level 2 mutated beings meant, the threats they had faced before. Even the mutated giant dogs and the massive mutated blobs, only qualified as level 1 mutations. Level 2 mutations indicated a terrifying evolution far beyond the conventional biological state before the Earth's calamity. Such creatures were extremely dangerous. At that moment, the officer approached the prince, felt his forehead, and lifted his eyelids for a quick glance before shaking his head in disappointment. He turned to Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai and said, "Forget about him. With him in this state, there's no saving him." Meanwhile, most of the survivors on the second floor had nearly evacuated. The two security personnel were negotiating with the daughter of a prominent figure, lagging behind the others and unable to descend to the first floor. The young woman in the attractive short skirt kept glancing this way. Upon hearing the officer's words, Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai felt a heavy weight in their hearts. Zhang Chao instinctively exclaimed, "How is that possible? My second brother is in good shape. He just has a fever. How can he be beyond saving?" The officer replied, "With a fever like this, if you try to carry him, you will die too. Isn't that what beyond saving means? You have to leave him behind. He is a liability that will get you all killed." Outside, the scene was briefly illuminated by flames. A terrifying mutated giant bird, glowing red, was spewing fire, scorching a mutated brown bear. The leading officer's expression changed drastically. "It's a special variant. This is a level 3 mutated creature. There is no time for chatter. You need to prioritize your survival and come downstairs with me." Su Xinghai, however, reached out and firmly grasped the officer's arm, saying, "Brother, my friend here is likely awakening, which is why he has a fever. Please, think of a way. I know the situation is urgent, but we can carry him with us. You and the other soldiers just need to lead the other survivors ahead. We'll follow you. If we can retreat to a safe place together, please help us. Will you?" The officer looked surprised. "It's not that I don't want to save him. I would do my best to save anyone if I could. But with so many variants outside, it's already a struggle to save you all. To be blunt, we can't guarantee that many of us will survive. If we can save one, we will. In this situation, bringing him along is seeking death, even if he is awakening and could become a powerful individual in the future. If you all die, what is the point?" Su Xinghai understood the officer's reasoning. The chaos outside was overwhelming, and with the 3 giant monsters, more than half of the creatures on the streets were variants. In such a scenario, everyone was on edge, and even the military personnel had their limits. If there were truly no options, they wouldn't be so reluctant. Su Xinghai took a deep breath and said, "You don't need to worry about that. I'm also an awakened one. We will fight our way out with you." The officer gave Su Xinghai a deep look, wanting to ask who this feverish person really was to them. But he knew time was of the essence, and there was no time to waste. He simply nodded and said, "Then be careful. If you have the ability, I will do my best to take care of you. Follow me." At that moment, the wall on one side of the second floor suddenly exploded. A fiery line shot out from the mutated giant bird, piercing through the wall like a cannonball, sending debris flying. Su Xinghai picked up a tabletop to shield himself from the splattering debris, while Zhang Chao carried Wang Cheng on his back with all his strength. The 3 of them followed closely behind the officer, rushing downwards. The gunfire on the first floor sounded like popping beans. The front door of the hot pot restaurant was shattered by a monstrous force, and a large number of mutated creatures followed the army into the restaurant, engaging in a fierce battle. It had turned into chaos, with military personnel and mutated creatures everywhere. Some soldiers retreated to cover the survivors, but were surrounded by 3 or 4 mutated creatures, torn apart in a gruesome manner, blood splattering everywhere. In their last moments, they shouted, "Run! Run!" The soldiers fired in all directions, doing their utmost to protect the survivors as they retreated. They prepared to blow up the kitchen wall to create an escape route. A wave of survivors and soldiers descending the stairs got blocked in the corridor on the second floor. Mutated creatures climbed up from the sides and yanked a hapless survivor down the stairs. The 2 armed security guards and the soldiers fired together to hold back the onslaught. Many survivors on the second floor suffered casualties. One survivor, missing half of his body, screamed in despair, "You shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have come here. You caused our deaths. You caused our deaths." Before the military arrived, they had been waiting here, hoping for rescue, but now they blamed the military for their plight. In his despair, he failed to realize that they were already trapped in a hot pot restaurant. Even if the military hadn't come, they had no way to leave. With no food and only waiting to die, the military could also choose not to come and not to save them. In that case, he wouldn't even have the chance he had now. If he wanted to blame someone, he could only blame himself for his lack of ability. Others seized opportunities to survive. He could not, and could only vent his anger in futile despair, revealing the darkest and most ignorant aspects of human nature. If it weren't for the soldiers, who would selflessly save you in such a time? Conversely, they might even kill or rob you. Su Xinghai witnessed this scene and, reflecting on the experiences of the past few days, deeply felt that the military could not be perfect. Even though the soldiers were desperately trying to save people, human ability has its limits. With so many survivors and so many monsters, there would inevitably be times and places they could not cover. To avoid despair, one cannot rely